heard that you'd married Jacob Morrison.
I'm asking you to marry me again.
The dust settled around the lone horseman as he approached the weathered fence line of the Double Creek Ranch. Samuel Hayes pulled his hat low over his eyes, not to shield them from the setting sun, but to hide the tears that threatened to fall. 3 years, 3 long years since he'd seen this place, since he'd seen her. The ranch looked smaller somehow, though he knew that was just his memory playing tricks. The barn still leaned slightly to the left, where the storm had damaged it in '71. The old oak tree by the well still spread its branches like protective arms over the yard. And there, hanging from the porch line, were the same blue curtains Emma had sewn the summer before everything went wrong. Samuel's horse shifted beneath him, sensing his rider's tension. The animal had carried him through desert and mountain, through battles that left scars on both their bodies and souls. But this, returning home, felt like the hardest journey of all. Easy, thunder, Samuel whispered, his voice rough from disuse. In the past 3 years, he'd spoken more to his horse than to any human being. It was safer that way. Words had a way of getting a man killed out there in the territories, where every stranger might be the law or worse. The sound of a screen door creaking open made his heart stop. There she was. Emma stood on the porch, one hand shielding her eyes from the dying light, the other clutching a dish towel. Even from this distance, Samuel could see she'd grown thinner. Her auburn hair, once wild and free, was now pinned back in a severe bun. The carefree girl he'd loved had become a woman carved by hardship and worry. She didn't recognize him at first. How could she? The boy who'd left had been clean, shaven and full of dreams. The man who'd returned wore a beard and scars that told stories he'd never want to share. "Can I help you, stranger?" Emma called out, her voice carrying the wariness of someone who'd learned to be careful of unexpected visitors. Samuel's throat closed up. He'd practiced this moment 1,000 times during those long nights under the stars, but now all his carefully chosen words abandoned him. Instead, he simply dismounted and removed his hat, letting his hair catch the last rays of sunlight. Emma's dish towel fluttered to the ground. "Samuel," the word escaped her lips like a prayer, so quiet he almost didn't hear it over the evening wind. "Samuel Hayes, is that really you?" He nodded, not trusting his voice. They stood there for a long moment, 30 yards and a lifetime of hurt between them. I thought you were dead." Emma's hand went to her throat, where he could see she still wore the small silver locket he'd given her on her 18th birthday. "They said the Apache got your regiment. The whole company lost in the mountains. Most of them did." Samuel's voice came out as a croak. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I was lucky, but was he?" Looking at Emma now, seeing the way she held herself so carefully, like a woman afraid of breaking, Samuel wondered if dying with his friends might have been kinder. At least then he wouldn't have to face what his choices had cost them both. Why didn't you write? Why didn't you send word? The questions tumbled out of her, and he could hear the 3 years of wondering and waiting in every syllable. Samuel looked down at his boots, worn thin from walking through places that didn't appear on any map. "I did write every day for the first year, but then I heard." Heard what? He raised his eyes to meet hers. "That you'd married Jacob Morrison." The silence that followed was so complete that Samuel could hear the evening insects beginning their nightly chorus. Emma's face went white, and she gripped the porch railing so hard her knuckles matched. "I had to." She whispered, "Samuel, you have to understand. Father died that winter, and the bank was going to take the ranch." Jacob offered to help. He said it would just be on paper, just to save the land until you came home. But I didn't come home. No, you didn't. The words hung between them like a wall neither knew how to climb. Samuel had imagined this conversation so many times, but he'd never prepared for the crushing weight of her resignation. She wasn't angry. Anger he could have handled. Instead, she looked at him with the tired acceptance of someone who'd been disappointed too many times to hope any more. "Where is he now, your husband?" The word tasted like poison in Samuel's mouth. "Gone to town, won't be back till tomorrow." Emma wrapped her arms around herself, though the evening was still warm. "Samuel, why are you here?" After all this time, why now? It was a fair question. Why had he come back? For months after learning of her marriage, he'd told himself he was better off alone. He drifted from town to town, taking work where he could find it, sometimes on the right side of the law, sometimes not. He'd convinced himself that Emma was better off without him, that she deserved the stability Jacob Morrison could provide. But then came the night in Tucson when he'd helped a wounded stranger in an alley. As the man lay dying, he'd grabbed Samuel's shirt with surprising strength. "Go home, son," the stranger had wheezed. "Whatever you did, whoever you hurt, go home. Don't die alone like me, with nobody to remember your name." The man had died before dawn, and Samuel had buried him beside a small stream outside town. But the words had burrowed into Samuel's heart like seeds in fertile ground. "I came back because I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you since we were children, and I'll love you till the day I die. I know I don't have the right anymore, and I know I'm too late, but I had to tell you. I had to let you know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life." Emma closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were bright with tears. "Oh, Samuel, you fool. My dear, sweet fool. I know I should have stayed, should have found another way." "No." Emma shook her head, and to his amazement, she smiled through her tears. "You beautiful fool, I never married Jacob Morrison. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What? I said I would, to save the ranch. But when the preacher asked if I took Jacob to be my husband, Emma's smile grew wider. I said no. Right there at the altar, in front of the whole town. I said no because my heart belonged to someone else, even if that someone was fool enough to ride off and get himself killed." Samuel felt his knees go weak, but the neighbors, the letters from town, people see what they want to see. Jacob was decent about it, actually. He was hurt, of course, but he understood. He even helped me keep the ranch running, though he moved back to town. People assumed we were married because that's what people do. They fill in stories when they don't know the truth. Samuel stared at her, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. "You mean you're not?" "I'm not married, Samuel Hayes." "I never was. I've been waiting for you for 3 years, though I was beginning to think I was the biggest fool in the territory." The distance between them suddenly felt unbearable. Samuel started toward the porch, but Emma held up a hand. "Wait." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Before you take another step, I need to know something. Where have you been?" "What happened to you out there?" Samuel stopped, his heart hammering against his ribs. This was the question he'd been dreading, the conversation that could destroy everything before it even began. "I've done things, Emma, bad things, things that would make you turn away if you knew. Tell me. After the Apache attack, I was the only survivor. I was badly hurt, and a group of, let's call them entrepreneurs, found me. They nursed me back to health, and I rode with them for a while." "What kind of entrepreneurs?" Samuel met her eyes steadily. "The kind that rob banks and trains." Emma didn't flinch, but he saw something shift in her expression. For how long? 2 years. I told myself I was just trying to survive, trying to earn enough money to come back and make a fresh start. But the truth is, I was angry. Angry at the world, angry at myself, angry at you for giving up on me. I never gave up on you. I know that now, but then I convinced myself you had. It made it easier to do what I was doing. Emma studied his face in the fading light. Did you kill anyone? The question hit him like a physical blow. Yes, innocent people. No. Samuel's voice was barely above a whisper. Only when they drew on me first. Only when there was no choice, but still, yes, I killed men, 5 of them. They stood in silence as full darkness settled around them. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its pack, the sound lonely and wild. Show me, Emma said finally. What? Show me the worst of it. Show me what you think will make me turn away. With hands that trembled slightly, Samuel unbuttoned his shirt. In the moonlight, Emma could see the map of scars across his chest and shoulders, some from Apache arrows, others from bullets and knives. But it was the tattoo over his heart that made her gasp. It was her name, written in elaborate script, with a date below it. The day I left, Samuel explained, his voice rough with emotion. I had it done the night before we rode out for the territories. I wanted to carry you with me, even if I never saw you again. Emma stepped down from the porch, her bare feet silent on the dusty ground. She reached out tentatively, her fingertips tracing the letters of her name on his skin. It hurts. She whispered, What does, seeing what the world did to you, knowing I wasn't there to. She looked up at him, tears tracking down her cheeks. It hurts inside too. Samuel caught her hand, pressing it flat against his chest, where his heart hammered beneath the ink and scars. I'm not the same man who left, Emma. I can't promise I'll ever be that boy again. I don't want that boy. She said fiercely, That boy left me. That boy chose glory over love. I want this man, scarred, broken, real. I want the man who came back. Before he could respond, she rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like she was afraid he might disappear again. But when Samuel's arms came around her, pulling her close, the kiss deepened with all the longing and loss of 3 lonely years. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Come inside, Emma whispered. Please, I've been cold for so long. Samuel hesitated. What about the neighbors if they see? Let them see, let them talk. I don't care any more. Emma took his hand, her fingers interlacing with his. I've spent 3 years caring what other people think, and it nearly cost me the only thing that matters. They walked toward the house together, but Samuel pulled up short at the porch steps. Emma, wait, there's something else. She turned, and he could see the fear in her eyes, the fear that he was about to tell her something that would shatter this fragile moment. There's a bounty on my head, $500. The law is still looking for the members of the Hawkins gang. Are you going to keep running? Samuel shook his head. I'm tired of running, I thought. I thought maybe I could turn myself in. Pay for what I did, if you'll wait for me. No, Emma's voice was sharp, decisive. No more waiting. No more separation. We've lost enough time, but the law can go to hell. The profanity sounded strange coming from Emma's lips, but her eyes blazed with determination. You said yourself you never killed an innocent man. You survived when others didn't, and you did what you had to do. That's not a crime worth losing our whole lives over. The bounty hunters won't see it that way. Emma smiled, and for the first time since his return, Samuel saw a glimpse of the fierce, fearless girl he'd fallen in love with. Then we'll face them together. This is our land, Samuel, our home, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let anyone take you away from me again." They spent that night on the porch, talking until dawn. Samuel told her about the places he'd seen, the men he'd ridden with, the mistakes that still haunted him. Emma shared her own struggles, the lonely winters, the creditors, the well-meaning friends who'd tried to convince her to give up hope. As the first light of morning painted the sky pink and gold, Samuel found himself studying Emma's profile as she watched the sunrise. "What are you thinking about?" she asked without turning to look at him. "I'm thinking about that dress you wore to the harvest dance. The blue one with the little flowers." Emma laughed, the sound like music after years of silence. "That old thing. I threw it out ages ago. I used to dream about that dress, about dancing with you under the lanterns, about the way you felt in my arms." Samuel reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I dreamed about a lot of things I thought I'd lost forever." "What else did you dream about?" "This," he gestured around them. "The ranch, the sunrise, the simple peace of being home. And children. I used to dream about our children playing in that oak tree, about teaching our son to ride, about you singing lullabies to our daughter." Emma's breath caught. "Samuel, I know it might be too late for all of that. I know I'm asking you to take a chance on a man who might not live to see next winter. But Emma, I swear to you, if you'll have me, I'll spend every day I have left trying to make up for the ones I lost." Emma turned to face him fully, her hands cupping his bearded cheeks. "Samuel Hayes, are you asking me to marry you?" "I suppose I am, though I don't have much to offer except a broken-down horse and more love than one man knows what to do with. That's all I've ever wanted." They were married 3 days later by the circuit preacher, with half the county in attendance. Some came out of genuine happiness for Emma, who'd waited so long for love to return. Others came out of curiosity about the mysterious stranger who'd won her heart. Jacob Morrison was among the guests, standing in the back with his hat in his hands and a gentle smile on his face. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Jacob was among the loudest to cheer, but not everyone was celebrating. As Samuel kissed his bride, he noticed a group of men on horseback, watching from the ridge above the church. Even at that distance, he could see the glint of badges and the unmistakable outline of rifles. The bounty hunters had found him. Samuel's blood ran cold, but he forced himself to smile as he and Emma walked back down the aisle. He wouldn't let fear ruin this moment, not after they'd waited so long to claim it. "What is it?" Emma whispered, her hand tight on his arm. "Nothing that can't wait," Samuel replied, though his eyes kept drifting to the ridge. The celebration that followed was everything a frontier wedding should be: music and dancing, good food and better whiskey, stories and laughter that echoed across the valley. Samuel danced with his bride under the same oak tree where he'd first kissed her when they were 16, and for a few precious hours he let himself believe that the past could truly be left behind. But as the evening wore on and the guests began to head home, the riders on the ridge grew bolder. They moved closer, circling the ranch like wolves around a campfire. Samuel was helping Emma clean up when he heard the sound of approaching horses. His hand instinctively went to the gun at his hip, a habit from his outlaw days that he hadn't quite shaken. "Samuel Hayes," a voice called from the darkness beyond the yard. "We know you're in there. Come out with your hands up, and nobody gets hurt." Emma gripped Samuel's arm. "Don't go out there. I have to." Samuel gently pried her fingers loose. "If I don't, they'll just keep coming, and next time You might get caught in the crossfire. Then we'll face them together." "Just like we said." Samuel shook his head. "Not this time, love. This is my fight." Before Emma could protest, Samuel stepped out onto the porch. 6 men on horseback waited in the yard, their faces hard and their weapons drawn. "That's far enough, Hayes." The leader called. He was a lean man with silver hair and dead eyes. "I'm Marshal Tom Brennan. You're under arrest for robbery and murder." "I figured as much." Samuel kept his hands visible but ready. "What's the charge exactly?" "The Copper Creek Bank job. 3 men died that day, including a 12-year-old boy who got caught in the crossfire." Samuel felt the blood drain from his face. "I wasn't at Copper Creek." "That's what they all say." "No, you don't understand. I left the Hawkins gang 2 months before Copper Creek. I was in Santa Fe when that job went bad." Brennan laughed coldly. "Got witnesses to that, do you?" Samuel's heart sank. He'd been in Santa Fe, but he'd been lying low, avoiding contact with anyone who might remember him. There was no one to vouch for his whereabouts. "Didn't think so." Brennan raised his rifle. "Now come along peaceful, or we'll drag you back in pieces." "Wait!" Emma stepped out of the house, moving to stand beside Samuel. "You said 3 men died at Copper Creek, but you only mentioned 2, the bank employees and a child. Who was the 3rd? Brennan's eyes narrowed. "What's it to you, lady? I'm his wife, and I have a right to know what you're accusing my husband of." The 3rd man was Bill Hawkins himself, shot in the back while trying to escape. Samuel went very still. "Bill Hawkins, the gang's leader, shot in the back. That didn't sound like any job he'd ever been part of." "Bill was too careful, too smart to get caught like that." "Who identified the body?" Samuel asked. "What?" "Bill Hawkins, who identified his body, because I guarantee you, Bill's not dead." Brennan shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. "The bank clerk who survived said." "The bank clerk who survived probably never saw Bill Hawkins in his life." "Most people hadn't." Bill was careful about that. Samuel took a step forward, his mind racing. What did this dead man look like? "About your height, brown hair, scar on his left cheek. That was Danny Morrison, Bill's cousin. I rode with Danny for 6 months before he got himself killed in a card game in Tombstone." Samuel's voice grew stronger as the pieces fell into place. "You're chasing a dead man, Marshal. Bill Hawkins used his cousin's name to throw you off the trail." "You're lying." "Ask around Tombstone. Danny Morrison died 3 months ago, shot by a gambler who caught him cheating. There's half a saloon that saw it happen." Brennan's rifle wavered slightly. "Even if that's true, you're still wanted for the other jobs." "Which I won't deny. But I won't hang for something I didn't do. And I won't leave my wife a widow over a false accusation." The standoff stretched on, tension thick as summer heat. Samuel could feel Emma trembling beside him, but she held her ground, her small hand slipping into his. Then, from the darkness behind the bounty hunters, came a voice that made Samuel's blood freeze. "Well, well. Looks like I got here just in time for the party." Bill Hawkins stepped into the circle of lamplight, his own rifle trained on Marshal Brennan's back. Behind him came 4 more men, the surviving members of the gang Samuel had once called friends. "Hello, Sam." Bill said with a cold smile. "Miss me, Bill." Samuel's voice was steady, but Emma could feel the tension radiating from him like heat from a forge. "I thought you were smarter than this." "Smarter than what?" "Coming to save my old partner's neck." Bill's laugh was harsh. "That's what friends do, Sam. They watch each other's backs. We're not friends anymore, Bill. Haven't been for a long time." "That hurts, Sam. It really does. Especially after all we've been through together." Bill's eyes shifted to Emma, and Samuel felt her grip on his hand tighten. "And this must be the little lady who stole you away from us. Pretty thing. I can see why you went soft. Leave her out of this." "Oh, but I can't do that, Sam. You see, when you rode away, you took something that belonged to me." Samuel frowned. "What are you talking about? The map? The one you lifted from that army courier outside Tucson? The one that shows the location of the gold shipment that's coming through Devil's Canyon next week?" Samuel's heart sank. He had taken the map, but not for the gang. He'd taken it to turn over to the authorities to finally do something right. But before he could act on that decision, he'd received word of his father's death and had rushed home, the map forgotten in his saddlebags. "I don't have it anymore," Samuel said. "No, then where is it?" Samuel's eyes darted to the barn where Thunder stood waiting. The map was still there, rolled up in his bedroll. But if he told Bill that, the outlaw would surely kill everyone present to cover his tracks. "I burned it," Samuel lied, "weeks ago." Bill's face darkened. "That's too bad, Sam. That's really too bad. Because now I'm going to have to motivate you to remember where it really is." Before Samuel could react, Bill swung his rifle toward Emma. The night exploded in gunfire. Samuel threw himself in front of his wife as bullets flew in all directions. The bounty hunters, caught between two sets of enemies, returned fire desperately. Horses screamed and reared. Men shouted and cursed. Through the chaos, Samuel heard Emma cry out. When he turned, he saw blood spreading across the front of her wedding dress, the simple white gown she'd sewn herself for this day. "Emma," Samuel caught her as she fell, his hands pressing against the wound in her side. "No, no, no." "The barn?" Emma whispered, her face pale as moonlight. "Get to the barn." Samuel looked up to see Bill Hawkins advancing through the smoke, his rifle reloading. Most of the bounty hunters were down, and Bill's men were spreading out to surround them. With strength born of desperation, Samuel scooped Emma into his arms and ran for the barn. Bullets whined past them, but somehow they made it to cover. Inside, Thunder nickered nervously. Samuel lay Emma down on a pile of hay, his hands shaking as he examined her wound. "How bad is it?" she asked, her voice weak. "I don't know. I can't tell in this light." Samuel tore strips from his shirt to use as bandages. "Emma, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." "No," she said firmly. "This is Bill Hawkins' fault, and he's going to pay for it." You need a doctor. What I need is for my husband to stop that madman before he kills anyone else." Emma gripped Samuel's hand with surprising strength. "The map, Samuel. Give it to him." "What? Give him the map." "Let him ride to Devil's Canyon and straight into whatever trap the army has waiting." Samuel stared at her. "How did you know about?" "I've known about the map since the day you came home. I found it when I was brushing down Thunder." Emma managed a weak smile. "Did you really think you could hide something like that from me? Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was waiting for you to tell me. I knew you'd do the right thing when you were ready." Outside, Bill's voice called through the night. "Sam, I know you can hear me. Send out the woman, and we can settle this like gentlemen. Over my dead body." Samuel growled, "That can be arranged." Emma pulled Samuel's face down to hers. "Listen to me. There's a loose board in Thunder's stall. Third one from the left. I've been hiding money there for 3 years, saving it for when you came home. Take it and the map, and get out of here." "I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving me. You're going to town for the doctor, and you're going to make sure this ends tonight." Emma's eyes blazed with the same fierce determination he'd seen on their wedding day. "Promise me, Samuel. Promise me you'll stop running and face this head-on." Before Samuel could answer, the barn door exploded inward. Bill Hawkins stood silhouetted against the firelight, his gun trained on them. Touching scene, Bill said mockingly. Really brings a tear to my eye. Samuel slowly stood, his hands raised but his body positioned between Bill and Emma. Let me guess, Bill continued. She wants you to be noble, to do the right thing, to turn your back on your old friends and ride off into the sunset like some fairy tale hero. Something like that. Problem is, Sam, there are no heroes in this story. There's just you and me and a lot of bad choices. Bill stepped closer, his gun never wavering. Now, where's my map? Samuel looked down at Emma, who gave him the slightest of nods. Thunder's Stall, Samuel said quietly. Loose board, third from the left. Bill grinned triumphantly. Now that wasn't so hard, was it, boys? He called to his men. Get that map. As Bill's gang ransacked Thunder's stall, Samuel knelt beside Emma again. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin felt cold to the touch. Stay with me, he whispered. Always. She replied. Bill found the map himself, unrolling it with greedy eyes. Beautiful, just beautiful. This is going to make us richer than kings, boys. Bill, Samuel said, not looking up from Emma. You've got what you came for. Let us go. Can't do that, Sam. You know too much about my plans, and frankly, I'm still pretty sore about you deserting us. Bill raised his gun, but I'll make it quick, for old time's sake. The gunshot, when it came, was deafening in the enclosed space of the barn. But it wasn't Bill's gun that fired. Marshal Brennan stood in the doorway, smoking rifle in his hands, his shirt dark with blood but his eyes steady. Bill Hawkins toppled forward, the map fluttering from his lifeless fingers. Sorry, I'm late to the party. Brennan said, his voice rough, had to wait for the right moment. The remaining outlaws, caught completely off guard, surrendered without a fight. Samuel later learned that Brennan had been playing dead, waiting for his chance to end the standoff without more bloodshed. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The doctor arrived from town and treated Emma's wound painful but not life. Threatening, he assured Samuel. The surviving outlaws were taken into custody, and Samuel found himself facing Marshal Brennan across the kitchen table of his own home. I checked your story about Danny Morrison, Brennan said. You were right. He died in Tombstone 3 months ago. Samuel nodded, too tired to feel vindicated. I also checked your story about leaving the gang before Copper Creek. Turns out you were telling the truth about that too. How? Brennan smiled grimly. Bill Hawkins kept a journal. Very thorough man, our Bill. Recorded every job, every split, every time someone joined or left the gang. According to his records, you were dismissed from the group 8 weeks before Copper Creek, apparently for being too soft and unreliable. Samuel looked up from where he'd been holding Emma's hand. So what happens now? Now you're a free man, Hayes? Oh, there's still the matter of those other robberies, but given your cooperation tonight and your service as an army scout. Brennan shrugged. Let's just say the territorial government is willing to let sleeping dogs lie. Samuel felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. There is one condition, Brennan continued, which is the army's going to need someone who knows outlaw tactics to help clean up the remaining gangs in the territory. Someone with experience on both sides of the law. Brennan leaned forward. Interested in a job, mister? Hayes? The pay's not much, but it's honest work. Samuel looked at Emma, who smiled and squeezed his hand. I think I'd like that, Samuel said. 6 months later, Samuel and Emma stood on their front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Emma's hand rested on the small swell of her belly where their first child grew. Do you ever regret it? Emma asked, giving up the outlaw life, Samuel wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on top of her head. "The only thing I regret is taking so long to come home." In the distance, a train whistle echoed across the valley, the same railroad line that Samuel now helped protect in his work with the territorial marshals. It was honest work, as Brennan had promised, and it kept him close to home. "What are you thinking about?" Emma asked. "I'm thinking about that dress." "What dress?" "Our wedding dress, the one that got ruined in the shooting." Samuel turned Emma to face him. "I was thinking maybe we should have another wedding. A real one this time, with all our friends and family. And maybe a dress that doesn't have bullet holes in it." Emma laughed, the sound as sweet as church bells on Sunday morning. "Samuel Hayes, are you asking me to marry you again, every day for the rest of my life, if you'll have me?" "That's all I've ever wanted," she said, echoing the words she'd spoken that first morning after his return. They kissed as the sun set behind the mountains, painting their faces in warm light. Somewhere in the distance, Thunder whinnied from the pasture where he grazed contentedly, finally at peace after so many years of running. The past, with all its mistakes and regrets, was behind them now. The future stretched ahead like an endless prairie, full of promise and possibility. And in this moment, on this porch, in each other's arms, Samuel and Emma had everything they'd ever dreamed of. Love had brought them back together. Love had healed their wounds and given them hope, and love would carry them forward into whatever tomorrow might bring. Under the endless western sky, they were finally home.